How y'all doing? I'm the Watchman, and this video right here is a brief. I try to make this pretty quick, but as I'm sure the whole Protestant, really the whole world has been kind of shook up. Some have been shook up. Some have been happy about what Pope Francis, Tony Palmer, that little conference they had going on. But it caught me while I was looking at it the other day. Uh, it caught me that Pope Francis, he's a Jesuit, and everything he said, just like Tony Palmer, who's a Jesuit, was very scripted and very thought through. And it hit me when he was describing when he slid in the story of Joseph. There is a evil, wicked agenda that he was actually telling through that story. See, Jesuits, they believe in order out of chaos. There are certain things that they believe, models they believe. And one of the things they do believe in is hiding in plain sight. To hide in plain sight. And that's also in messages, points. And just as Jesus taught through parables, they will spread a message and warnings, a message of warning and certain things through stories. And that is what I just want to share with y'all briefly, because I sat quiet on it for a while, and I didn't see anybody really catching on to it. Doug Batchelor, he touched on it. He touched on it a little bit, and I said, okay, Father, I'll expound on it a little bit more. I'll expound on it a little bit more. It is that deep, and no matter what denomination you are, this story has incredible significance on really what he was really saying. Of course, when you look at the video, and I'm sure pretty much y'all have pretty much seen it already. When you really look at the video, you're like, oh, that's a kind of little deep. I like that analogy he used. The brothers during the time of famine going to seek Joseph, and in famine they sought food and they found their brother. Da, da, da. But let's unpack it real quick. Let's get right to it. The Catholic Church is Joseph. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm talking about the system and not the people in the system. I'm not talking about the Catholic, because I honestly, even on my ministry page, I honestly know a lot of good Catholic brothers and sisters. And like Jesus said himself, he says, I have sheep in other fold, but when they hear my voice, they will come. So I'm not talking about the people. I'm talking about the system. All right. Now, of course, what Pope Francis was getting at is that the Catholic Church is Joseph. Let's rewind and go a little bit go to the beginning of the story of Joseph. And let's really look at this. Let's look at it as he portrayed it. Now, see, you have to look at it as he portrayed it, and not as we're used to hearing it. So now let's look at the story of Joseph as Joseph being the Catholic Church, the other brothers being the other denominations. The other denominations are the other brothers. This is very key. Now let's look at it. First off, I want to pull out the significance that Joseph and the other brothers had different moms. Joseph only had the same mom with Benjamin. And you might say, what makes this point so critical? Well, once you fast forward to the end of the story, Benjamin did not go with the other brothers in search for food because of the famine. That's a powerful significance with what we're getting to. Okay, so first thing is Joseph had a different mother than the other brothers. Another thing is the other brothers. Let's remember the story. Now remember, we're picturing Joseph as the Catholic Church. The other brothers, through Joseph, they wronged him greatly, horribly. They threw him in slavery. They sold him in slavery. They sold him in slavery. So they did this great wrong to Joseph. this tremendous wrong to Joseph. You know, especially far as brothers is concerned, it's like, what? So what is he really saying? Beloved, the Catholic Church, they stand by this principle that they are infallible, meaning they don't make any mistakes. So when they killed 200 million Christians just several hundred years ago, not that long ago at all, beloved, they don't believe they erred at all. Even in their apology, if you can call it that, they don't even outright just say we were wrong. When you look at the video, when Tony Palmer gives this well-worded speech at the very beginning, if you notice, he said, "Oh, Luther had a protest, like Luther would like it was just a protest over these principles." The truth of the matter is, because they know many of us do not do our homework. We're too busy being spoon fed whatever they dish out, and many of us don't do our homework. They know it was not over just the principles. Now think back. Even look at the video again. Tony Palmer kept stressing it was because we differed in righteousness by faith, but now we're on the same principles. No. It was because they were killing and murdering you. If you even had, I could have had just this much of this is a receipt. I could have had, let me flip it around. It's a bank receipt. I could have had just this much of a scripture in my pocket, and I was thrown in prison, tortured, murdered, if I didn't recant or ball it up or burn it. And I kid you not, over 200 million Christians were murdered and killed by the hands of the Catholic Church, at the hands of the papacy. And this is in history. This is history. This is why America was even founded by the Pilgrims. They were escaping religious persecution. This is not a fact. I mean, this is not a rumor, but this is a fact. This is a fact. So when Tony cleverly says, and this is what boggles me, he says this in a room full of ministers and other religious leaders, other denominations who should be on point, but that sometimes we can be blinded by money or also already be on the agenda, because just to be in there, they wasn't gonna have no real protesters in there. So just to be even in there, you already had to already have given in on a certain level. But anyway, back to what I'm saying. First off, the Catholic Church believes they are infallible. I learned that word because they said it. I kid you not. I never knew what infallible was growing up until I was reading where in the Catholic Church says the Pope is infallible, doesn't make any mistakes, doesn't err. The Church is infallible. So they honestly believe, just like the story of Joseph. Now, who used the story of Joseph? The Pope did, for a distinct reason. They honestly believe that they were wronged by the Protestant movement, even though they were the ones that killed, and I stress this, over 200 million Christians. And even more than that were murdered, because it's not like today where we could keep tracks and records of people and they had the census going on. No, there were many people slaughtered and killed who didn't have any paperwork, as we would call it, or a birth certificate. This is back in the umpteen hundreds. And I kid you not, all of this is in history, documented from the Spanish Inquisition. But anyway, back to this story. So they believed that they were wronged. They didn't do the wronging, but we wronged them by protesting, by splitting, by when we defamed their name. This anger and this hatred has been brewing for years. For years. Let's look at the story. Let's get back to the story. Okay, so here Joseph is wronged by his brothers, sold into slavery. This real hurtful. He's outcasted. Beloved, when Protestantism hit its high and America was founded, and the Pope was taken captive by General Berthier of Napoleon's army. I believe it's in 1798 when Berthier marched right into Rome and took him captive, and that same Pope died in captivity or in exile. These wounds, as Revelation 13 tells us, it was healed again in 1929 when Mussolini gave the power back to the Pope. But beloved, just because a wound healed doesn't mean the memory healed. Think about it. Just because a wound healed, as Revelation chapter 13 tells us, that the beast who received the wound, his wound was healed. Now remember, the Catholic Church is this beast spoken of in Revelation 13, and his wound was healed, speaking of 1929 when Mussolini gave the Pope back his power. But just because the wound was healed, the memory is still there. So so they're dealing with this great wrong that they believe Protestantism gave them. That Protestantism in the world gave the church. Now let's fast forward to where Joseph is in power. Now let's go to where the Pope brought in the story. Joseph is the second highest in the kingdom. Now let's look at this. The Catholic Church believes that they are they don't even believe that they're under God. They believe that they are right there with God. The Pope and God. The Pope is God, basically, in flesh. So you really check out the story. So they're Joseph. They're the highest in the kingdom. And beloved, when Pope Francis became the new Pope, did not our government, did not our known United Nations hold him up at the United Nations and claim him as the spiritual leader of all the churches? Imagine that. Who gave them the authority to make him the spiritual leader of all the churches? But anyway, they're saying that they are running the world, in which they really are. This is a wicked world on so many levels. I heard a man say one time, a lot of people don't, just for us electing a Jesuit Pope shows the lack of knowledge on who Jesuits really are. The Jesuits was created by Ignatius Loyola to stamp out Protestantism. Isn't that now look at, we got a Jesuit Pope for the first time. The Jesuits was first created back in the umpteen hundreds to stamp out Protestantism, and here him and Tony Palmer are claiming to the world Protestantism is dead. Is not Pope Francis on his job as a Jesuit? That is their job by any means, to stamp out Protestantism. But anyway, the Catholic Church. So let's look at the story with Joseph. They're pretty much in things, because Joseph, the Pharaoh, left all the power to them to run things. So they're basically saying that God, who in this story, Pharaoh is God who leaves the power and running of Egypt to the Catholic Church. To Joseph. In the story, Joseph was left the power to run everything, see us through the famine, run it all. You are in control. You are the highest in the land. So they're saying that God has made them the highest in the land. They're in charge. They're running things. Now here, these other denominations, which we'll call brothers, which are the brothers in the story. These other denominations, there's a famine, there's a drought. And who do they have to come to get fed? The one they wronged. Are you seeing the analogy now? The analogy that he put into place. So these other churches have to come to their brother who they wronged to get fed again, to get food. Let's look at it, since we're looking at symbolism. We will call it the word. To get word from God, they have to go to Rome, where we just had a whole bunch of them say, yeah, we're Catholics, and cheer and stand up and pray and do all that good stuff. So, but let's look. The story gets even deeper. Now remember, they're Joseph. The Catholic Church is Joseph. He's in charge. When the brothers came to Joseph, did Joseph put them on the same level? No, not at all. Joseph was still in charge, running things. And this is a key point. There's going to be a remnant who's going to be persecuted, as the Bible states in Revelation 12, verse 17. Was there one person that Joseph threw in jail? Was there one out of the other brothers that Joseph distinctly had an issue with and wanted to see something? It was Judah. Beloved, this is where it gets even deeper. Who came out of the bloodline of Judah? Christ. Our King Christ came out of Judah. Could it be? Now remember, the principles of Christ, this is why they killed over 200 million Christians, because the principles of Christ, they do not agree with. They tell you we agree with the principles of Jesus, but they say Mary is the mediator between God and man. And they paint Jesus to be a tyrant up in heaven who Mary has to soothe. Calm down, Jesus. Don't kill mankind. That is what they believe. Apparitions have even come out and stated it, which we know is just demons talking to the people, but apparitions have even stated that I'm calming down the hand of my son. Y'all need, matter of fact, just Google it right here on YouTube. YouTube the apparition of like 1932 or 1930, I believe, the Belgian apparition and things of that nature. And they have the words, they don't hide it. They just hope you don't do your homework. But anyway, look at the story. Judah is locked up. Judah receives extra persecution from Joseph. Out of Judah's blood came Christ. Could it be that the Bible is dead on point, and so are these Jesuits when Pope Francis uses this analogy, because those who hold on to the truth of Christ, because while they're speaking unity, Jesus said, I came to bring a double-edged sword, a two-edged sword between father, son, mother, daughter. He used that analogy saying, I came to bring division between the intimate of relationships. The truth divides. He says, come out and be separate. But anyway, look at this verse. Revelation 12:17 says, and the dragon was wroth with the woman and went to make war with the remnant. Remnant means the last remaining few of her seed, which keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. Now, out of these brothers, which one would have the testimony of Jesus Christ? Would it be the bloodline that Jesus came out of? And you see, Revelation 12:17, the first word was, and the dragon was wroth with the woman. Well, let's skip over to the very next chapter. You see, it's the dragon was wroth with the woman who has the testimony of Christ. And remember, the Pope just used himself in the analogy of Joseph, and have Joseph, the Catholic Church, as Joseph. So if you use the Catholic Church as Joseph, and Joseph locked up Judah, he locked up Judah. And let's just say Judah is the testimony of Jesus Christ. Can we equate the Catholic Church, this beast system, with the dragon? Look at Revelation 13. Revelation 13 says, Revelation 13 verse 4, when talking about this beast that had the womb, and that the womb was healed, Revelation 13 verse 4 says, and they worshiped the dragon, which gave power unto the beast. The dragon and the beast are one. So now, when we look at what we just read in Revelation 12:17, and the dragon was wroth with the woman, and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, which keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. So just like in the story of Joseph, let's put the Catholic Church right there. The Catholic Church are gonna persecute in cage, snare, treat differently. One of those brothers, one of those denominations that come to him to get fed. That same denomination, that same brother whom Christ came out of. This is powerful and this is deep. And they knew the analogy. They knew what they were saying. The question is, do we really know what they were saying? He used that one little part, but beloved, look at the whole story. I mean, Jesuits believe in hiding in plain sight. It's just, are you willing to really see what they were saying? They will and they are going to persecute one of those brothers who come to him to get fed, as Joseph locked up Judah. Is it a coincidence that that just so happened to be the bloodline that Christ came out of? And is it a coincidence that when we look at Revelation 12:17, that the dragon is wroth with those who keep the commandments and the testimony of Jesus Christ? And that in Revelation 13:4 that we see that the dragon is who gives power to the Catholic Church, to this Catholic system. Why would the devil use a system, a religious system? Beloved, out of my personal studies, I believe this is what the Holy Spirit gave me. In heaven, when the devil was in heaven, he tried to overthrow God's throne physically and overtake heaven. Couldn't do it. Jesus and his angels kicked him out. This is all in Revelation chapter 12. Jesus and his angels kicked him out. Ooh. Kicked him out. The devil's not foolish. Well, he is to try to overthrow God. He is, but he's also wise. He knew he could not do it physically. After he got put it out, boom, he knew right then, I cannot take heaven physically. But he realized, even though I can't take it physically, if I can get a power or a government per se, if I can get a religious government to take down the principles of heaven, in a sense, that's taking down heaven itself. So that is where the Catholic Church comes into play. Because he couldn't do it physically, he got a religious power to do it spiritually, to attack heaven and bring down the principles of heaven. And that very prophecy is found in Daniel 8. Let's look at it real quick. I wasn't going to speak on this, but let's look at it real quick. Daniel 8, starting at verse 11. We're starting at verse 9. And let's just read it real quick. Now, this little horn is the Catholic Church. Now, remember, the devil couldn't bring heaven down physically, but he wised up and said, I can't do it physically, but if I get a religious power, I can bring down heaven spiritually. I can bring down the principles of heaven. And let's see, this is the most underlooked prophecy, I believe, in all of Scripture. Daniel chapter 8, and we're starting at verse 9. It says, and out of one of them came forth a little horn, which waxed exceeding great toward the south, toward the east, and toward the pleasant land. And it waxed great even to the host of heaven, and it cast down some of the host and of the stars to the ground and stamped them. Yea, he magnified himself even to the prince of the host. Who's the prince of the host? Who's the prince of heaven? Christ. And it says he magnified. What religious leader magnifies himself in the face of Christ? The Pope, who has a throne inside the sanctuary, a throne that he sits on, says that he is the vicar of Christ. You know, he says that Mary is the mediator between God and man. Let's get back to it. Yea, verse 11. Yea, he magnified himself even to the prince of the host, and by him the daily sacrifice was taken away, and the place of his sanctuary was cast down. I just brought out how they defile God's original sanctuary so much, from having a throne in there, from having a confession booth. That's a mockery in itself right there. A man telling another man, I can forgive your sins. He's saying he's Christ. Christ said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man cometh unto the Father but by me. But anyway, he says at the end of verse 11, Daniel 8, at the end of verse 11, and the place of his sanctuary was cast down, and a host was given him against the daily sacrifice by reason of transgression, and it cast down the truth, the principles, to the ground, and it practiced and it prospered. And that's talking about the whole, when I say them umpteenth years, them centuries, them dark centuries, where them 200 million Christians, over 200 million, that's all we have record of, but many were killed who we didn't have no paperwork or birth certificates on back then. Beloved, this is not a game. Prophecy is fulfilling itself. And what they are not telling you, what the devil doesn't want you to know, is that probation closes shortly after the false prophet, which is the Protestant churches, which is Babylon is fallen, which is the false prophet. They become a false prophet because they're following up under the beast. When the false prophet and the beast join hands, probation for all of mankind closes very soon after that. But this evil hidden message in the story of Joseph, pay attention. No matter what denomination you are you really protesting or are you giving in? Have you really gave in? Think about it. If you believe that another man can forgive another man's sins, then you're not protesting. You're right. You can just join hands and hold hands with them and sing songs. If you can believe that Mary has taken the place of Jesus as our mediator, then beloved, you're not protesting. You're just joining hands with them, singing songs. Check the message. Joseph was in charge. The other brothers had to come to him for food. Did he put himself on the same level with the brothers? Not at all. Joseph stayed in charge. Threw a brother in prison. They are not playing. Prophecy is fulfilling itself. Prophecy is fulfilling itself. And to Revelation 13, for those who don't know, Revelation 13, where I was referring to the beast getting wounded, and that was when in 1798, when General Berthier of Napoleon's army went inside of Rome, took the Pope hostage. That's when the Catholic Church fell, as one might say. That's when the beast got wounded, and that's found in Revelation 13. Revelation 13 and verse 6. Revelation 13 and verse 6. And then the wound that was healed. Let's see. The wound that was healed. The wound that was healed. And it was given him to make war with the saints. Matter of fact, it was Revelation 13 verse 3. And I saw one of his heads as if it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed. And when his deadly wound was healed in 1929, when Mussolini gave power back to the Pope, and in verse 3, Revelation 13 verse 3, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast. Beloved, shortly after these things happen, probation closes for all mankind. Jesus said, as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be today. The door of the ark was shut 7 days before the rain came. Probation for all of mankind ended when the door was shut. Not when the rain came. When that door to the ark was closed, everybody's fate was decided. Probation was closed. That 7-day period, the people thought, they were still joking, cracking jokes on Noah for being in the boat until that raindrop hit them in the head 7 days later. But beloved, everybody died when that door was shut. That's when their fate was sealed. And Jesus said, as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be today. Probation is going to close, and it's going to be just a regular old day like today, and the books of heaven are going to shut and be closed. That's what the devil doesn't want you to know. He wants you to just focus on the second coming. Yeah, when the rain, like in Noah, just focus on the rain, so you don't see when that door shuts. When Jesus says in Revelation 22, he that is filthy shall be filthy still. He's talking about when probation closes. Ain't gonna be no I'll get right tomorrow. I'll change my soul. I'll let this go tomorrow and I'll change my life tomorrow. It won't be able to be that. Everything is gonna be sealed. Either you're gonna be in or you're gonna be out. And beloved, it's gonna be a regular old day like today on everything. I can't stress it enough. Probation closing isn't being taught because the devil he wants you to forget or not even to know about probation closing. When the false prophet, which is fallen, the Protestant churches who join hands with Rome, God calls them the false prophet. When the Protestant churches who join hands with Rome, a little while after this, just a little while, probation for all of mankind closes. Probation closing can be found in Revelation 22:11, where Jesus says, look, let's read verse 10. Verse 10 sets up probation closing. He says, and he's ending the Bible with this. This is how important it is. He says, Revelation 22, verse 10, and he says, and he saith unto me, seal not the saying of the prophecy of this book, for the time is at hand. He that is unjust, let him be unjust still. He which is filthy, let him be filthy still. And he that is righteous, let him be righteous still. And he that is holy, let him be holy still. And behold, I come quickly, and my reward is with me, to give every man according to as his work shall be. You see, I want you to notice something right there. You see, it says, he that is unjust, let him be unjust still. You can't change. Once probation closes, you won't be able to change. You see how that happens before Christ comes again? Look, verse 11 happens before verse 12. He says, he that is unjust, let him be unjust still. He that is filthy, let him be filthy still. You won't be able to change your spots. You won't. Once probation closes, that happens. Then Christ says, and behold, I come quickly, and my reward is with me. So, beloved, shortly after these things happen, probation is going to close for all mankind. If you're like me and have a lot of things in your character that you need to give to the Lord, you need to earnestly fight with, and really, beloved, we believe Jesus is coming again, but are we really living like it? If he came in the next minute, would you be ready? I know I wouldn't. Beloved, the time to change is now. The time to give him your faults, your flaws. The time to fight the wickedness of our flesh is now. It's now. I'll take care.